Hi, it's me. Yeah, it's me. Yeah, it's me on my channel, and I've just listened to a few ghost stories, uh, personal encounters online, and I think, well, from what I can gather about paranormal activities and ghost anomalies or haunted places and everything, right? You might believe that there are ghosts or there might not be ghosts, but one thing I can be sure of, hang on. Yeah, one thing I can be sure of is why are there places like or like this video that I just found on YouTube. It was showing about 10 really beautiful mansions, which is like about $20 million and $15 million. It's really big. It's really huge. It's owned by famous historians, famous millionaires, famous people, basically, and no one wants to buy that mansion. No one wants to buy, and it's like they were cutting down the prices from like 20 million to like 15 million, and finally 5 million, and then finally 2 million, and like I think I saw a mansion going for like $10. And it's like, and I found out that the reason being that the mansion wasn't selling was because it was haunted. Simple. Like I mean, it makes sense, man. Before you move in a house, you surely want to you surely want to be sure of the history of the house. You want to know what happened in the house, who used to live there, who died in there, and of course, I mean, there's always stories where, I mean, I would believe these stories where like someone moved into a house and things go wrong, and then later on they found out from the realtor management, and like told them in the end that yeah, this house actually used to be owned by someone, blah blah blah, and like that person was like murdered or committed suicide, in this house, and that's it. There's a haunting case going on, and it's haunting the new owner, and so that is what I would just kind of like 50-50. I would believe in that sense just as much as anyone would believe in religion itself, right? Whether you're Christian, Buddhist, or Muslim, or Jewish, or whatever, there's always that some good or evil forces that's like against each other, between the realms of the unknown and all that. So yeah, I think I would want to share one of my ghost stories that I've experienced. This is a real story. I can't really make sure whether this was a real ghost story, because at that time when it happened to me, I was still a young 20, 22. I was 22, 23 year old. I was still very young, and I couldn't really make out what really happened. But it sure did. It really did freak me out. Cause okay, here's what happened. Okay, when I was 22, I was in the army, right? So yeah, it's compulsory for us Asians, especially when you're in Singapore. It's compulsory for any male who just turned 18, and you have to serve the army, the police, or the fire brigade. So I got chose. I got a letter from the army, so I got enrolled in the army. And yeah, I've had like a lot of ghost experience when I was in the army, and one of the most scariest and unexplainable experience that I have. I'm not lying to you right now, because I am really telling the truth, and this is from what I remember. Okay, this was before 9/11. This was before September 9/11. September 9/11. Yeah, before that, it was a few weeks or few months before that. It's a long story. Okay, so what I was supposed to do in the army was I was a regimental police. I was in the regimental police division, whereby all I do was just sit in my guard room or prowl around the camp at night, or in the day. And what happened was one night I was prowling. I was prowling at night from my guard room on my bicycle. I was just prowling from a checkpoint to a checkpoint, and that was around I think around 1 a.m. Yeah, it was around 1 a.m. and it was my turn, and it was a 2-hour prowl. So we have to like make sure we do our rounds, slowly check every room, to make sure there's no one, or any illegal immigrants trying to like break into the camp, and stuff like that. So I was doing my rounds. It's like normal. I've done that for like a year, and it's like nothing scary for me. Even though it was late at night, I had a torch with me, and I had a walkie-talkie with me, and I had my M16 rifle with 5 live rounds in it. So I got nothing to be scared of. Because as far as I can think about ghosts, if I see it, as long as it's not a real human being with a knife or a weapon or anything, I have my rifle. I can just shoot him or whatever, because I can catch them, because I'm a regimental police. That's my job. My job is to make sure there's no one in the camp at night. I make sure the security is tight. So what I did was I was walking. I was cycling around a few checkpoints. Then I came to this bend right at the far end of the camp. Okay, the location of the camp, I don't know whether I should reveal the location of this camp, but okay, anyway, it's my experience, so why not I should just reveal the location of this camp. Okay, the location of this camp is at Tanjung Gal Camp and Boon Lay. Yeah, it was at Boon Lay. It was a reservist training camp. So that camp, basically, you have like these old reservist army trainees. They get their call-ups. So they come in like every month. And we have to like check their baggage and like prowl around at night, make sure they are all asleep and stuff like that. So yeah, that was the camp. The location of the camp was Tanjung Gal Reservist Camp. It's called ITC. That was the location. So back to my story. When I was doing my prowling, right, there was no one in the camp. There was totally no one in the camp. It was just me, a few guards, and my sergeant who was on duty that night. He was in the guard room with the walkie-talkie. So if anything happens, I'll just give him a call on the walkie-talkie and tell him what happens, and he will send a few men over there. And one officer, and the officer is in the office. He's in the office, and officers in the office. He's probably watching his TV, or he's on the computer, or he's probably doing his work, or he's drinking at the club or whatever. But sometimes you do drop by the guard room and just check on us, because that's the warrant officer's duty, But that night, everything was fine, The warrant officer was in his office doing his work, and the sergeant in the guard room was just sitting down and just talking to his girlfriend on the phone or whatever, And I was just prowling at the back of the camp. So here's the part. As I walk, there was this basketball court. Okay? There was this basketball court, and there was this block, and this is like a storeroom whereby lots of weapons are kept in there, So I have to like make a right turn, and there was a one checkpoint at the far end of the camp, and it was located at the end of the gate, and beyond that gate is there's this naval port. It's a naval port, and that's it. If you go beyond that gate, it's a naval port. You are trespassing the Singapore Tuas naval property, so nobody will want to go out of that gate. What we want to do is make sure no one enters the gate. Okay, so I was walking towards the gate, right? So I was passing by this building, this storeroom building, and as I was passing by, I heard some singing, I heard like someone singing in the shower, at night, like it went like something like that, like you kind of like yodeling, kind of like that kind of like tone, I swear I heard it, and yeah, there were two of us, and we had to keep our distance, I think about I can't remember how the distance, I think 2 meters apart. But that night my buddy was like way ahead of me, and I was alone, so I heard the singing, so I decided to like approach the building closer. The building was very dark, it was very dark. No one was in the building, and I just flashed my flashlight at the window. I just see nothing in the building, and I heard like, I kept listening. I just stood down there, and I walkie-talkie to my buddy. I said, "Hey, hang on. I think I'm hearing something in this building. Just hang on for a while, okay?" And my buddy just said, "Okay, Roger." He just stopped at his checkpoint, and he waited for me. Okay, so I was just sitting. I was just sitting somewhere near the basketball court, and with my rifle, and I was just listening at the building, and I think I heard a lady. I was very certain it was a lady's voice, and she was I'm getting like goosebumps right now as I'm telling you the stories. Okay, she was singing like some lullaby tune, like a mother singing a lullaby tune, like she was carrying a baby, like. But it was like in a different language. It was in an Asian language, like in Malay language. Like it goes something like tidurlah boy, like something like go to sleep, my baby, go to sleep. Why don't you go to sleep? And I'm like, what the fuck? There's no one in the building, and who is singing? And at that moment when that thought occurred to me, right? At that moment when that thought occurred to me, suddenly I heard like something falling in that building, like there were a door slam, or something falling in the building, And right at that moment, right, a white barn owl, it was really huge, I'm getting goosebumps right now. A white barn owl just came out of the building and just stood by the window where I was looking, and it just looked at me, and I was looking at the owl, and the owl just flew away. The owl just flew away, and I just took out my walkie-talkie and told my buddy, it's okay. I think I just heard some uh, ghost or whatever. And then my buddy just like he was just laughing on the phone or whatever, And I asked him, you want to check the building, And he was like, fuck no, man. It's like there's no one in the building, man. It's like the whole building is empty. All the reservists are out. Who could be in the building? And so yeah, we just went back to the guard room and we just kept this story like it was just forgotten. It was like whatever. It was like it's some owl or some vampire or Pontiana or whatever, ghost. So I just thought, yeah, maybe it was a ghost or whatever, and I just but swept it aside my mind, and I went to sleep that night, and nothing was bothering me. Yeah, nothing was bothering me. I was sleeping peacefully, and the next day I went home. Yeah. I went home. I slept. I ate. And the next day I had to go back to work. To camp. And so the next day I went back to camp. I can't remember if it's the next day, but within the next few days after the incident, right? Yeah, and this time there was no one in the camp. Okay, there was no one in the camp, and this time I was standing in this what do you call that? The what's that thing? I forgot that name. This kiosk, where like when the car pass by, I have to like press this button to let this to lift up the gate, and it's called a guard station. I forgot the name. So I have to like salute any officers who's like passing by, and I have to check any vehicle who's coming at night. I have to like ask for their letters or anything. So I was standing there alone at night, with my rifle. It was under this tree, and there was a car park behind me, and the guard room. I could see the guard room, and the guard room could see me. So anyone in the guard room, we had to make eye contact. The sergeant will always have to like look at me, make sure I'm not asleep, and I have to like walk around, look around, that kind of thing. So I was doing my guard duty that night, and I was like stationary guard duty. I was standing by the gates, with my rifle. So I was like standing there, and yeah, the owl that I saw a few nights ago flew right above the tree that I was standing at, and it was just standing on it perched itself on the tree that I was standing at, So I was like looking at the owl, and I was looking at the owl, and the owl was looking at me. It didn't hoot, or it didn't like make any screeching sound or anything, Then the owl just flew away, and I was like, whoa, this is cool, A barn owl. I mean, it's just common that barn owls, they like to habitat places where where there's no one, or like they like to make nests in like rooftops or anywhere, But I think back about the singing that I heard in that building. It was questioning me more and more and more, but I just kept it to myself, I just like, okay, there was this singing I heard the other night, and then now there's this owl that I saw, and then now it's standing on top of the tree, So I wondered, what else does it want from me or from anyone in the camp or guard room, And then few nights again, right? There was no one in the camp. It was like for 1 whole month there was no activity in the camp, yeah. And then again, I was this time nothing happened when I was doing my prowling, and as I was passing that block that I heard the singing, right? That night I was passing that block as I heard the singing, and that night I decided to like sort of like enter the block, go up the staircase, But there wasn't any checkpoint there, The checkpoint was outside, so it was like voluntarily I just wanted to like check for myself if there's anything there, So it was a bit scary. The feeling was a bit scary though. It was because it was very dark. The lights are all out at night. All you have is all I had was my flashlight, and that's it. So I walked up the staircase. I walked up the staircase, and I was looking at this dark alleyway, and there are like doors. So behind these doors are like storerooms, like storage of like ammos, army equipments and everything. So basically, a lot of like storemen, like in the army, like they would issue these items to the reservists. In the day, they would be in that block. They would be doing their job. Making sure everything is in place and everything. So there were rooms in there, behind doors. So what I did was I saw this alleyway, right? The doors are all locked. I have no keys for the doors. I can't open any door, right? So what I did was I just flashed the flashlight at the alleyway. All I saw was nothing. Nothing was there. So I just waited for a few seconds. I just kept quiet, because I told my buddy, I just hang on, I just want to make sure there's no one upstairs singing or whatever, because I heard someone singing a few nights ago. My buddy said, okay, go for it, if you want. So he waited downstairs, so I went upstairs. So I flashed my flashlight in the alleyway. Nothing was there. Like it was just like normal. So yeah, we did our rounds and everything, and then we came back to the guard room. So I came back to the guard room, so I slept for 2 hours, and I think it was around 2 a.m. 2 a.m. Then I slept for an hour, and then it was my turn to go back to the stationary kiosk where it was my turn to like guard the gate. I was like on stationary duty, standing in the what do you call that, the kiosk. So I was standing on the kiosk where I saw the owl on the tree. Yeah, so I was going to stand there, and so I stood there. So this night, on that night, there was a different officer stationed. I forgot his name. There was like a different officer, and there was a different sergeant. Both of them are different from what I mean. I didn't tell anyone about this incident. So okay, here's what I saw, right? So I was standing at the kiosk, just looking around, making sure everything is okay. I'm always awake, And then I looked up in the sky. Right? And as I looked up in the sky, yeah, I could see like blocks of like a lot of blocks where all the reservists would like stay in, And I saw this like cloth, this like long cloth. I don't know whether it was a towel or it was a cloth, but it was just hovering and floating in the air like the wind was blowing in, But the way it floated, it wasn't like floating in a very haywire kind of way, like floating like the wind was blowing. It was floating like somebody was sitting. This is my description. Like somebody was sitting on the towel. This is funny. Somebody was sitting on the towel, and it was just like floating slowly and slowly and slowly. And then it even stopped for a while and just looked at me. It just stopped for a while in mid-air, and it just like looked at, I don't know, it's sort of like just decide to just stop and just like, let me have a look. Like I was like, I took out my walkie-talkie and I call out my sergeant. Yeah, you guys, can you please come out right now? And then my sergeant came out, and the rest of the guys came out, and we all saw the floating towel in the sky. Just like it wasn't white, it was like a towel with some lines on it, but it was a cloth. It was some cloth or whatever. I think it was a towel left behind by some reservist or whoever who was working during the day or whatsoever, and it was just left behind, and that towel was floating in mid-air, and we all saw the towel. We even called the officer who was on duty that night, and he came down and everything. So it was quite a commotion, because we saw the towel. We all wanted to make sure what was it. And then my sergeant said, nah, nothing, it's just the wind blowing or whatever, and my officer was like, I could tell from his face that he knew that something was wrong or whatever, but he asked all of us, are you guys okay? Everything is okay? Is everyone like, having any seizures or whatever? And we said, no, we are fine. We just saw that towel floating and that's it. But I didn't tell the story about what I heard or whatever. And then the next few days, it was during the day, and I was yeah, when during the day when I'm doing my guard duty at the gates, there's going to be two-person. Okay, there's going to be two-person. One is going to be someone who's going to be writing down the vehicle's number who's coming in to the camp, and me, the police, the regimental police, holding the rifle. We're gonna have to like do our salute, and check for any things, any suspicious things or whatever. And so I was stationed with this storeman, and he, and I told him about what I saw, the singing, the owl, and the towel. This is real. Okay? I told him the story about my experience in that store. I mean, passing by that building. And he was a Chinese guy. And then when I told him, he told me another story. He told me that, hey, dude, you know what? That building is actually haunted. And I was like, why? How come? Why is it haunted? And he told me this. Right now, I mean, at that moment, he was telling me, this is what he told me. At that moment in his life, his house is haunted. And I was like, really? So you're telling me that something from that building followed you home? I asked him, and he told me yes. And I told him what happened. He told me that his wife was currently pregnant at that time, and there was one night when he was stationed at that building, and then he was just doing his job in the day, and then he told me that, yeah, I was just doing my job during the day, and I decided to go back home at night. So when I came back home at night, yeah, I just made dinner and everything, with my wife, and my wife was pregnant and everything. So late at night, they were about to sleep, and when they were about to sleep, his wife was having some sleep paralysis, like she couldn't move and she was screaming in her bed, and then at that moment, his wife woke him up, and they both saw this lady in white, just standing in their room, and he knew that something was wrong. So he was a Chinese guy, and he was a Taoist. His religion was a Buddhist, Taoist. So he took out some prayer beads, and he kept praying and he kept praying, But he didn't tell this story to anyone, And this is what he told me. So I kept praying, and then I told him, what happened? I mean, you saw that ghost in your room, and then what happened? I just prayed and prayed, and it disappeared, Then what happened? Then he said, I came back to camp the next day. I just like put it aside, like I don't wanna, think so much about it. He told me, and the next night he told me he came back home, same thing happened again. And so that thing was, he was telling me it was happening to him like in a span of 1 week, And during at that time, I was like, everything was fine in my camp, I didn't hear the singing anymore, and no owls or whatsoever, and that thought of hearing, I mean, on my side of the story was the thought of hearing the singing and everything just faded away from my mind, I forgot about it, but as I was doing my duty and as he was telling me this story, and it totally like opened up a new chapter, and so he was bothered at home by this spirit who was actually haunting that building. I don't know. The thing about being in the army, right? Especially when you're in a reservist camp, you're in a camp, you go out to like places in the jungle, in Singapore, like Lim Chu Kang, or like remote places where they do like trainings at night in the jungles, and there could be a possibility like something else from elsewhere, followed this guy and followed this guy, and that thing stayed at his at that building where he worked, and followed him home, So that's my logic insight of what was happening, So I asked him, what else happened, That thing's been bothering me for 1 week, And he told me this, and he told me he couldn't take it anymore. His wife was like saying things. His wife was like being scratched or whatever, Then he himself saw the lady like shadows moving past him by, and everything. And so what he did was he hired a he hired a Buddhist monk, a Taoist monk, to come over to his house, and have it check, what is happening, So the monk came over to his house, The monk came over to his house. The monk looked around his room and his house, and the monk straight away told him, something is following you. The monk told him, something is following you, and it's actually from your camp, from our camp, from my camp, from our camp where we work, and it's actually from there, from that building. That thing is from that building, and and so he asked the monk, so what do I have to do to make that thing go away? So the monk, this was what he told me, okay? The monk told him that you need to buy some milk bottles and some snacks. Chinese, the Chinese, they have these rituals where they buy like uh, things, or snacks or food or items or anything, to like sort of like please the spirits or the entities or something like that, or and make them go away, and tell them nicely, and then make them go away and see whether if that works, if that doesn't work, then they would try something else, So what that monk told him was buy bottles of milk, bottles of milk, put some milk in it, buy some candies and everything. So he bought everything. He bought bottles of milk and candies and everything, So the monk did some ritual in his house, They were putting all the candies and everything, and then the monk chanted prayers and everything in his house, telling the spirit to go away, telling the spirit to go away, And he asked the monk, "What is this spirit?" The monk said, "This spirit is actually a spirit of in Asia we call it a Pontiana, It's called a female vampire, This female vampire, they are actually spirits of women who died in their pregnancy, who either died in their pregnancy or who had a child and they died, I mean, like, it could be like something from the World War II era, I mean, this could like be something from like ages ago, I'm talking like from the 60s, from the 50s, from the 40s, and like spirits have nowhere else to go. They go to the jungle, man, they hang around these dark places, and soldiers train over there, and they know, if you have a wife who is pregnant, they would know that this guy has a wife, and they will follow you home. I mean, that was what happened to my friend, happened to him. So that was that was our logic conversation that we had. Yeah, maybe it makes sense, that thing is just in the jungle and it follow you home lah, I told him, and he was like, yeah lah, that thing was probably from outside and it followed us, followed him into the camp, and then and followed him into his house, because his wife was pregnant, at that time, and these vampires, they like to haunt females who are actually pregnant, because they want the baby of the, or they want the baby of the wife who's pregnant, something like that, they want to possess that woman, or they want the baby, or they want her dead, or something like that, they just want to possess, or just want to disturb, because I mean the spirit is a troubled spirit. I mean, can you imagine being a mom and like who died a violent death, being stabbed or killed in the pregnancy? I think surely your spirit or soul will be tormented, will probably haunt, like, for a while, till somebody make a certain ritual and you pass on, So I asked him, so what the monk did, so he told me, yeah, the monk did some bell ringings, some Tibetan bowl singing, and Taoist monk. He had like a few friends. They were like offering incense and everything into his house, and he told the spirit, do not bother this guy, I've given you your snacks or whatever for your baby and everything, and go away, and I go away, or that kind of thing. And then the monk made a talisman, for my friend, made a this like a talisman for my friend, to wear for protection and everything, and this was what my friend told me, and I was shocked as hell at that time, because I told him, dude, I heard someone singing in that building like a few weeks ago before you told me this story, man, and he said, that was it lah, he said, the thing was probably down there, and I was like, I saw a fucking owl, man. And yeah, in Asia, we believe that these entities, right, or these spirits, they can appear in animal forms, they can appear in animal forms, or they can appear in many forms, but it depends on the person who is going to pass through to where they are around. Like for me, I have never seen anything ghostly, like shadow, and this is a very subjective topic, where I think some people have lower tolerance towards certain magnetic fields or whatever, like some people are gifted to see, some are not gifted to see, some are protected, some are prone to like these kind of things, like for me, I guess I can see, but they would appear in animal forms. This is my experience, my way of seeing things, because I know when especially at night, if I see a snake with like red eyes or whatever, at night, like in my path, and it's just like staring at me, and I'm staring at it, and for me, I know this is something else or whatever, and I'll just pass by the other way, or try to not disturb it, and try to tell it, I don't want to disturb you, and I come in peace or whatever, So my take is these things, they can appear in animal form, like jinns, in Muslim culture or religion, jinnis, they can appear in many forms, spirits, yeah. So that's my story, yeah. So that's my story, and my friend, after that, I told him what happened after that, and he told me everything was fine. He told me the monk did his part, he paid the monk quite a certain amount of money to get the thing off, so, and after that, I was doing my prowling and everything. I didn't hear any singing or anything in that area anymore. And then there were no barn owl. I have never seen a barn owl in my camp for like years, man. When I was like for like a year when I was doing my duties over there, I've never seen a barn owl flying straight up the tree and like staring right at me. And I don't think a barn owl has the guts to like come close to a human being, unless it's trying to tell me something. Because usually barn owls are usually probably afraid of human, like a bit shy. They wouldn't come really close to humans. They would probably keep their distance. And it was just stranger. And this was my story anyway. Yep. So yeah, I was just thinking of sharing anyway. Yeah.